Hey, hello there. Welcome to another one of the cold and dark videos that I've done here. I'm Dave, also known as the 757 Spy over on Twitch TV, and this is a video that I've gotten several requests for, and it's taken a little bit of time to put this all together because that airplane, that one, right, it has been changing so much. This is the famous fly-by-wire A320neo update or mod, as we would use it in Microsoft Flight Simulator terminology. And this is the Airbus that they have been modding on almost literally a daily basis. And so trying to put together a video that keeps up with what's going on is pretty much going to be impossible on something like this. But now's probably a good time to get this done because there are some new functionalities. Functionalities coming in, and they've also introduced the AOC and the ATSU together. Big words. Air Traffic Services Unit is the ATSU. AOC is Airline Operations Control. I'll show you all of that. This is a cold and dark video, just like I did with the A350 over on X-Plane. And so let's go ahead and take a look at some of this. First of all, most important, this is not the right way versus the wrong way, okay? This is really just my opinion, and it's what works for me. And I'm still really new over on the YouTube side of things, so I'm still to the point where I read every comment. So I want to see what you have to say too. But I am over live on Twitch, and we'll talk about that. But right now, let's talk about this flight. Today's flight is going to be Billings to Denver. There's the flight plan at flight level 370, 37,000 feet. Runways are going to be 28 right and 16 right. I'm using the FS Labs A320 calculator and black boxes NDAP page for some of the big numbers out there. So what's the whole point of this? This is so that you can fly along with me and set your airplane up and make it through a complete flight. So if you don't want to fly these airports, the biggest thing I suggest to new people flying a flight like this is choose a familiar route. Something that you know about. You don't have to fly the route that I'm going to do today. This is one of the routes that I'm most familiar with, so this is one of the ones that I do when I'm trying out a new airplane. Next option for you is to choose your hometown airport and go to a big hub. And if you can choose a flight that you've already taken as a passenger, or if you are a real-world pilot, choose a flight that you've taken. A couple of tools that I use for this. I use Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief. I'm also using Navigraph and a free little application called Pushback Helper. You'll see that, and that's a really good thing to have. Some more data about this airplane. So here's some of the latest updates on the fly-by-wire. You do have the option now to use kilograms, which is great. It's an Airbus. We can do weight and fuel loading, so payload and fuel loading on the ATSU and AOC. METARs are now available through the ATSU and AOC. METARs weather information through the flight management computer. Been begging for this from some other developers on other platforms, and the people from Fly-by-Wire are just putting it in right now, and it works great. Speaking of working great, this works with the Thrustmaster TCA stick and throttle very well. We still do not have top of descent indicator, so you're going to have to, well, you could do a bunch of math, or you could just kind of eyeball it like I've been doing that. Hey, flex temperature works right now, so you can do a derated takeoff, save a little bit of fuel, save a little wear and tear on the engines. But the best part is that airplane just keeps getting better and better because the people from Fly-by-Wire are doing little updates like almost every day if you're using the developer mod and the other just checking on a daily basis. The developer mod, that's the little thing from Fly-by-Wire that you basically get to look at every day. This is a screen grab I took of my developer mod just this morning. I mean, really, an hour before flight time, I usually go and just double click on the Fly-by-Wire mod, and it works really, really good. The other thing that I'm using here is the Navigraph nav data. And I really do suggest, if you've got Navigraph, to be be doing updated nav data on this thing. Let's see. Finally, I think if you're doing this with me for the first time, fly along with me. I'm going from Billings to Denver. The best way to do this, though, is keep your YouTube window off to the side and fly along. But be sure to pause and restart the video, and even roll back just a little bit so that you can catch up, and so you can set up your airplane like I'm setting up my airplane. That's going to help you out a little bit. The other thing that I'll suggest is please join us on the Twitch Spy Flights. This is a really great way to get together with other people. You know, people that are old hands at this flight simming thing like I am, but also people who are brand new at this sort of thing. And if you're flying along with a few other people, which you can do in multiplayer in Microsoft Flight Simulator, that's just going to help you grow in terms of your flight sim skills. And then once again, like I said, it's not right versus wrong. These are just the things that are working for me right now. I mean, chances are next week this video could be absolutely obsolete by the time that that you see this video. So anyhow, there we are. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let's go to the main view here, and here's the little button that says ready to fly. We are ready to fly. And we are now here in the cockpit, and it's a really nice cockpit too. I like this. I've become quite the fan of the way that Airbus sets things up. And so this is basically my startup flow. So if you are ready to go, you're in your airplane, you've got a flight plan. Where did you get your flight plan? Well, I got my flight plan from Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief. These are both free, by the way, and I highly suggest getting these. You'll need a free login over at SimBrief, but boy, does that work. And you probably noticed in the description below, of course, the links and everything else there, but you're also going to see this thing right here. This is what I call the flight strip. And this is basically data that I've lifted out of my flight plan and kind of put in one convenient notepad file. And, I'll update it every now and then by hitting the save button. But I update this pretty much every day. And this is all the cheat sheet stuff that I might need to successfully complete a flight. You can just copy and paste this out of the description into a notepad and change it and make it work for you. Or if you fly along with us and get over on the Discord channel, before every flight, I post a new version of that with the latest flight data. So anyhow, let's go ahead and start up our airplane, and we start by looking up here in the upper panel, and we got to turn on the batteries. So battery number 1 and then battery number 2 are both going to go on. We're at the gates, so you've got a green light here for external power, and so there is the external power, and we're going to pop that on as well too. Next thing you do is you turn on navigation and logo lights. Those are the little lights on the wingtips of the airplanes. And basically that lets people on the ground know that there is somebody up in the cockpit punching buttons and stuff like that. So basically, let's get back in here. And so we've turned that on. This little thing right here, I really like this one. This is the overhead, the backlighting for the overheads. It's one of the things that just kind of makes all the instruments pop out here just a little bit. So I really like to go and make sure that that's turned on. A few other things I'll turn on. We're going to turn on no smoking. We're also going to arm the emergency exit lights over the airplane. And then I got a little button over here that says crew oxygen. So we're going to turn that on. And then as you look down here, you can see we've got a few other things going on. Let's zoom in just a little bit, and I'm going to move over here. PFD stands for Primary Flight Display, and that's this one here, and it's all the way down. It's I usually go 1, 2, and on this airplane, I turn it about 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock. The next one over is the ND, Navigation Display, and I usually turn that one up to about 9 o'clock. And then the one below it, that's the map that goes on the navigation display, and I will turn it up to about 9 o'clock too. And so there are these things going on over here. Slide all the way over here. You'll do it for the first officer too, because the first officer's out doing the walk around on the airplane, and turn those up to about 9 or 10 o'clock. So we got those going. Now let's look down. There's the McDo, but see where it says ECAM, upper and lower display? I'm going to turn these up, maybe just 2 clicks or something like that. Otherwise it gets a little bit too bright. And so now all of our little displays are showing up. I've got another view that's set down here so that you can see the throttles. And one of the things to do before you fly an airplane is just make sure your throttles run all the way forward and all the way back. That's a good thing to do. If you look over here, make sure that your side stick moves when you move your side stick. Maybe also check your rudder pedals, make sure that those work. Real pilots are going to do those control surfaces checks before, as the airplane's powered up. I kind of suggest doing it right now because if your joystick isn't connected to the computer because there was some little bug, now you can get that taken care of before you've set up too much of your airplane. Couple more little lighting controls down here, and that's these guys right down here. Floodlight panel, I'm going to turn that up to maybe 1 or 2 clicks. Let's do 1, and then I'm going to turn the background lighting. Integrated lighting is what I think they call it, and that's for the main panel. And did you notice that all of a sudden the cool background, backlighting on the Airbus, everything down here on the pedestal popped up? It just makes those little indicators that you're going to look down at pop out a little bit more. And then the last one is going to be up here. You see these 2 little knobs underneath the FCU, Flight Control Unit. This one right here, I'm going to increase the panel brightness. You see that pops that up a little bit. And then you can also adjust the level here on the numbers that you see here in the autopilot. So now that we've got all of those turned on and the airplane, the cockpit's all lit up, we're going to go up and do the fire checks, just like the real world pilots do. And what you'll do is hold the test button down for a second. And that's testing the APU fire. You'll also test the fire system on engine number 1 and the fire system on engine number 2. Hey, we've got fire stuff. So the next thing to do is we're going to go up here and whoops, let's try that again. We're going to go up here and we've got the ADIRS system, and there's IR number 1, number 2, and number 3. So we're going to turn on number 1. The light's going to flash at you just a little bit. You might wait to see. Real-world pilots, I think that they're waiting to see if the light that says on battery pops up. That's not modeled on here yet, but eventually that will be. So you would wait and see that each ADIRS system is also connected to the battery. That way, if you've got a complete and total failure of just about everything here, you've still got the navigation systems connected to the battery. That way you at least know where you're going when you're trying to figure out how you're going to put your airplane down on the ground when nothing else works. Okay, so we've got all of that set up. Now we can go down here to start doing the McDo. And this is something that I'm so impressed with the people at FlyByWire for implementing, and it's this thing here. I mentioned it before, the ATSU. So here's the McDo, the flight management computers here, but ATSU. This is called the Air Traffic Services Unit. So we're going to click that one, and then we're going to go over here for the AOC, Airline Operations Control button. And look at this. We've got init and pressurization. I think that's, let's click the button and see. Here is the init review. Wow, I haven't even seen this. This is new. I have not seen this yet. This is great. So this is pretty awesome. I think that this is going to work with your. This is going to work with SimBrief, and I'm not 100% sure that I've set this up. Let's put our flight number in and see if it does. UAL flight 441, because you're going to put this in to SimBrief. Let's see if it'll go and get something. No, it's not going to get that, so let's clear that. Let's do an init data request. Again, this is brand new. Look at that. Look, holy moly, look at that. So there's my flight number. There is Zulu time. Billings to Denver. Fuel on board is going to be 9.5 tons. That's what we have right now. Estimated time en route, 1 hour and 7 minutes. Let's see, this is page 1 of 2. Let's see what's on page 2. There is out, off, on, in. These are real times that the airplanes like to keep an eye out on. Here's the landing pilot's name, whether or not you did an auto land. Again, they're changing this so fast that that's just great. You can do weather requests and ATIS information. This is messaging back and forth. I'm going to go over here to performance and weight and balance. And what we're going to do here is SimBrief said I needed 5.4 tons of fuel. And look at that. It went to my SimBrief flight plan and said 5.4 tons of fuel. So all of that's in there. What you could do is you could add a little bit of fuel. And I'm going to add just a little bit because I'm going to be a difficult person. And I want just another ton of fuel in there. So we're going to add just a little bit more fuel, and I'm going to hit load. So there's loading the fuel. Now let's go. It says it's got a page 2 up here. Let's do weight and balance. We're going to have 110 passengers, and here's all of our information. Payload weight and 0 fuel weight, 5.2. These are the numbers right out of SimBrief. That's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and load my payload too. That's going to be all the passengers and everything else. And look at that. All of that's in there and done. Now I'm going to hit the init page over here, and most of the information is in. Billings to Denver. Alternate. Usually the alternate here is KCOS. That's Colorado Springs. So we'll pop that in there. May need to put in our flight number again, which is UA, flight 441, and pop that in. Cost index for today's flight is 5, and our cruising altitude is flight level 370, and we're going to pop that in too. Over on the IRS initialization page, IRS 1, 2, and 3 are aligned. I went for some reason and changed some things about, I had it do it in an instant alignment instead of the normal time, and I haven't changed it back yet, so that's why we got that sort of instant alignment there. Okay, next step, let's go into the flight plan, and there is our flight plan. Pretty much everything there. Well, not exactly. There's a few things actually that are missing. So it's got Billings, and then it goes immediately into the star for Denver. So I probably did something wrong there. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and we're going to add a few checks in here, a few stops. So after departure from Billings, we're going to fly over the Billings VOR. So put that on top of tofu there. And yep, there's the VOR. The general departure out of this airport is Gates, G-A-I-T-Z. So G-A-I-T-Z. So let's put Gates over tofu too. After that, it's Grins, G-R-Y-N-S. G-R-Y-N-S. There's Grins. Put that on top of tofu. And then the last thing we did is we had a checkpoint in the middle, and that's B-O-Y. So the B-O-Y VOR, we're going to stop there before tofu. And it gives you a latitude and longitude, and that looks good too. And let's go ahead and insert this. And that looks pretty good. Let's go to the top line here, and that's from. And this is going to be our departure. Billings departures pretty much using 28 right. Or 10 left, so it's 28 right. We're taking off to the west today. No SIDS going out of the Billings area, so let's just hit that button there. Into Denver, we do know that we are going to be coming in on runway 16 right, so let's pop in 16 right. That looks good too. It's already got the Flatiron 2 arrival via Cayley with the transition of Hippie already in there, so that's pretty much done. Let's just go ahead and hit the button there. And now, our flight plan's in. So let's go and check it like the real world pilots would. So the thing you'll do is you'll come up here and you're going to change from ARC to plan mode, and I'm going to kick this up to 20 miles. From 10 nautical miles to 10 miles. That's the map range. And I'm going to turn on constraints, and then we'll look back down here. Now, hold down the alternate button and take your pointer and put it over the navigation display and left click. And over on, if you've got a multiple screen setup, that's going to pop that out. I generally don't do an awful lot of pop-ups because that kind of ruins the immersion and stuff. But in this case, because I'm not sitting in a cockpit and can look up and down while I'm clicking a button, I think that this is the one time that I'll let myself do a pop-out. I know. I need to get a life. So basically, here we are on K-Bill taking off, and now we're going to hit the up button. And then we go over the Billings VOR. There's Gates, there's Grins, there's Boy. Now there's Tofu, there's Granola, there's Hippie, Folsom, Bobco. Ooh, Flatiron. Notice how Flatiron actually has, we need to be below flight level 290 and at 210 knots. We're actually starting to get some of the constraints are showing up. And not all the constraints work all that well. Even with the advanced nav data that's coming out of Navigraph. So they still need to clean some of that up. But right now, this is all looking pretty good. We're still going to have to take control of our own speed, which the real world pilots will do. And then the ILS approach coming into 16 right, all of those altitudes look good too. And then that takes us into Denver. Let's hit the flight plan button once again, and there we are, K-Bill. Let's see if this is working yet. We're going to go and do what's called the secondary flight plan. Okay, these are all grayed out yet, so they're getting ready to start implementing the secondary flight plan. It's just not ready yet. And so what the real world pilots would do is the secondary flight plan, they would go in and set up the ILS for the runway that they just took off from. That way, if you've got an engine failure or you've got to return to the airport for some reason, it's already in your secondary flight plan. I think it's one of the brilliant things that Airbus has set up with this. It's not implemented yet, but it's getting there. So I think that that's pretty cool. Let's see, I asked for a little bit more fuel. Right now it's boarded 5.6 tons of fuel, so not quite 5.7, but okay, I'm good with that. Let's go ahead and do a few other things. There's no ATC, so I'm going to put my cleared altitude of flight level 370 up. And you saw me looking off to the side there to remind myself. I've got all of my flight data, again, in this goofy little notepad thing. All I have to do is look over there. This is particularly helpful if you are overdoing a big VATSIM event or something like that, because if you're in the middle of a huge VATSIM event, then one of the things that you're going to need is all of your data in a single place. And there's not an awful lot of room on a computer table for a lot of this stuff. So if you've got a second monitor and notepad, and who doesn't have notepad, you can just keep it all there. It might take you an extra second or two to write that information down, but I've got to tell you, it works pretty good. And once you teach yourself how to use it, it's one of those little flight sim tips that at least works really good for me. Let's go ahead and launch a browser window right here, and I'm going to go to this website here, NDAP1. This is from Blackbox, and of course links are in the description. Seriously, do YouTubers even have to say links are in the description? Okay. So what we're going to do is, this is another live streamer. This is Blackbox. Blackbox is a real-world Airbus pilot that does amazingly good how-to live streams. If I need to learn how to do something new, going to Airbus for the Win, V1 simulations, and Blackbox, those are my first stops. Katie Pilot is a great place to know. These are real-world pilots that are live streaming, and they're going to tell you how to do things in the real world in the sim, and that's a great place to go and learn. It's my first stop. Let's go ahead and in the ICAO window, KBIL, and hit enter. So Blackbox has gone and has been compiling data for different airports, and you've got a couple of little bits of information down here. And in fact, this is all the information you need to depart the airport in one place. But I'm coming over here for thrust reduction, acceleration, and engine failure acceleration. And these are things that I'm going to go and put down here. So let's just wipe these dashes out. Thrust reduction is 4,870 feet, 4,780 feet. Put a little slash there. Acceleration altitude 6,370, 6,370, and a couple spaces here. And if I've got an engine failure, I can accelerate at 4,900. So those are just a couple of little bits of information that I need from Blackbox's website. And you're not going to find information on every airport in here yet, but it keeps growing. The list is growing. And the other cool thing about that is, if you don't have information, some basic information for your airport gets popped into your McDo anyway. So from there, let's go over here to the A320 Performance Calculator. This was set up for the fabulous FS Labs A320 over on P3D. And I'm using this for trim settings. I'm also using this for V1, VR, V2 takeoff speeds, and also flex temperatures, or a derated thrust setting. This is not going to be exact for the airplane that we have in here. These are going to be ballpark numbers, but I've kind of tested this out, and guess what? It seems to work really well. So I've got that ready to go. Things are looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and start up the APU. So let's go ahead and do the APU power switch, and we'll look down here and we'll see if the APU flap opens. And there is actually a flap for these things too. It's going to say flap opens. And if you look in the back of the airplane here, so there is a little flap. And you even heard the sound of the little motor going in, and that's the flap there. That's the air inlet for the APU. If we go back over here and look at this, it even says that the flap is open right now, so we can go ahead and start turning it on. Once the flap starts opening, you can hit the on button on this thing. I kind of like to wait for the flap, and you can see the N1's going to go up, the EGT, and if you go outside behind the airplane, you even hear the APU starting. So the modeling on this airplane gets better and better and better every day. So now that we're getting the APU set up, let's go in and start doing page 2 on the init. So here is initialization. We're going to go over and hit page 2, which is the right arrow. And for zero fuel weight and zero fuel weight center of gravity, this is information that we've got in other parts of the McDo, but if you just click it, it's going to automatically populate it with your information for your airplane. And you just pop that right in there. Now, the next thing to do is let's look up here. Our fuel is 5.6 tons. So it's 5,620 kgs or 5.6. So put in 5.6. Okay, and that's going to go and start the flight management computer doing all sorts of good information for you. A takeoff weight, a landing weight, all sorts of great numbers for you. Remember that little calculator? Let's go over here and grab it. And you may want to, let's go here and slide this over here just a little. And there's our calculator. So let's see, our zero fuel weight is 53.0. Takeoff weight, there's a number we're going to need. So let's go in here and put in the ICAO for our departure, which is Billings, and then hit the METAR button. We're going to fly the A320 CFM metrics. Flaps are going to be 1+F. Packs are going to be on. No need to turn off the air conditioning right now. Anti-ice is off. It's a dry runway. Takeoff weight, kg, 58.4, 58.4. Whoops. Got to put in the numbers correctly. All right, then the Mach. Now, the Mach that I'm getting here is I'm just taking the zero fuel weight center of gravity. I don't have a good Mach number, a place to find that yet. But eventually I'm going to get that. So I'm going to just put in 5.6 as the center of gravity for the airplane. Let's go down here to select, and we're going to take off on 28 right. And it's going to go and do a little bit of calculation here. Let's see, 28.9. 28.9. I put in the completely wrong number. 28.9. I put in the fuel. It's the Mach. It's the zero fuel weight center of gravity. I totally botched that one. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit 28 right again. Notice here it's now given us a stabilizer trim setting, and let's go ahead and hit the calculate button. Ooh, now we got all sorts of cool numbers here to look at. So aside from the fact that I put the wrong number in there, oops, sorry. I'm sure the McDo police are going to come get me any minute now. Let's go over here and do the perf button. All right, so what we have here is flaps and trim. Remember over here on this, so our flaps are going to be flaps 1, and our trim is going to be down 0.1. So let's go over here and put in a 1, and I keep moving this thing out of the way so that it stays up front. So 1, and then a slash, and then our trim again is down, DN 0.1. And that's going to go right in there. Next thing we're going to look at here is our flex temperature, and we are going to flex to 57 degrees. So let's put in 57 degrees. That means we're going to save a little fuel, and we're not going to tear up the engines as much. Next things to put in over here, we're going to go and do V-speeds. So 146, 146, and 146. Pretty standard for this runway. It always seems to be that. So 146, and that's V1. It's going to say that all of this disagrees. Just go ahead and type in the next number, 146. That's number 2. 146. That's number 3. Transition altitude in the United States is 1,800 feet. No, it's 1,800 feet. 18,000. I sometimes mess those up. 18,000 feet is our transition altitude, flight level 180. Remember I was telling you about getting thrust reduction and acceleration numbers from Blackbox's website? So it's already gone and populated some numbers in here, but I'm going to go and get the numbers from the website that Blackbox gave us, and that is going to be 4,780 feet, 4780, do a slash. Acceleration is 6370, 6370, and we're going to pop that in. Now, engine out acceleration does not, I don't think it's working right now, but we'll go ahead and try 4900, and no, it didn't change. And now look at that, our McDo is pretty much set. So again, all of that information is so cool, and I have found that it works really nice. If you would like to, you could also get a printout. So this is what it would look like coming out of the printer. Yep, the airplane actually has a printer. If you've ever looked in there to see, there's little strips of paper. There is the printer in the airplane cockpit. So if you wanted, you could go and get a printout of everything the way it would look, which I think is really cool. But we're not going to go and waste any paper today. All right, APU is up. It's available. Let's turn on the bleed. I'm also going to turn up the temperatures now. In the cockpit, we're going to turn it up just a little bit below the mid mark. The same thing for the forward cabin, about the same as the cockpit. And in the aft cabin, we're going to turn it down just a little bit below that. I'm told by real-world pilots that the aft part of an Airbus gets a little bit on the stuffy side. So one of the things is they turn the temperature down a little bit, so it's not quite as stuffy back there. All right, everything else is looking good. We're going to go ahead and turn on our fuel pumps. All of that is looking good too. If we were on one of the air traffic control networks, we would get a squawk code. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and change my squawk code to just 2000. 2, 1, 2, 3. And really, our airplane is up. Did you see something? Did you notice my speed brake lever is all the way down? Sometimes your speed brake levers are going to be up, down, or neutral. But now that we've got the APU, we can go and put our levers where they're supposed to be. By the way, real-world pilots also go ahead and look at the gear panel before they start flipping switches. The gear lever, make sure that the gear lever isn't in bad shape. Let's go ahead and we're going to turn this up. And let's see, the departure altimeter is for Billings 3008. And at least that's the last one that I got. You know, we may have an update. And you know where we can go and find out about that? Right down here in the ATSU. So let's go to ATSU. Let's go to AOC. Let's go to Weather Request. And let's get the METAR for both Billings and Denver and hit send. It goes queued, and it goes sent. Okay, so we're pretty cool that. It's now been sent. Let's go back out to the AOC menu. And look over here. It says APU bleed is on, parking brake, TCAS is standby, company message. Ooh, we've got a company message. Let's go to the receive messages. And our METAR has arrived. And there it is. There's the METAR for Billings. There's the METAR for Denver. I am so happy to see that. I've got to tell you, I have, people have been begging other developers on other sims and other airplanes, can we please at least get this for VATSIM events and stuff like that? Oh, well, I'm not going to be mean to developers, but seriously. Altimeter 3008, our winds 240 at 16, few clouds at 16,000 feet. It is -3, a little on the chilly side here in Big Bill. All right, so that looks good. Let's go back over here to the performance page. We know that this is in good shape. We know that that's in good shape. Everything's looking good here. I'm going to go ahead and turn seatbelts on. Passengers are good for seatbelts. I didn't do anything with the jetways and stuff like that today, but you can also make jetways work too. But it's time for us to start doing the pushback. And as you can see right over here, there is our pushback truck right there. So let's go ahead and remember that little thing I told you about called Pushback Helper. There is how you activate. Turn it up, turn it on, and it's just a little overlay, and it says activate. So while it gets into place, let's go and look over here. Still connected to shore power. I've got the APU up, disconnecting shore power. Now, this thing doesn't talk at you an awful lot like the better pushback. So you do need to go and let's do the beacon because we're going to start making the airplane roll around a little bit. And once this thing clicks, you're going to want to turn off your parking brake. There it goes. Once that little, you see it kind of jump just a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Oh, looks like we got a near full moon out there. And now we're good for our pushback. How about that? So we're probably also good to start engines on this pushback too. So let's get the starter over there. And if you've got the Thrustmaster throttle, you can go ahead and use the throttle start switches, or you can click them. Just make sure that you've got pneumatic pressure or PSI. And let's go ahead and start engine number engine number 2. So I just flipped the switch. You're going to look over here and up. There's N2. Notice how there's a little gray box around the number. That indicates that the number is that the fans are starting to spin around. We're about ready to come past beyond the crew line. I usually push back beyond the little roadway here where the crew trucks drive back and forth. So that's usually my indicator that I'm going to go ahead and stop. Engines are starting. Let's go ahead and get this over here. Get your hand on the parking brake and deactivate. Just turn that off. And as soon as that happens, re-engage your parking brake, and then you can get rid of pushback helper, and you're done with the pushback. Now you can monitor your start. PSI for oil is going up. That's a good thing. It's no longer red. It's turned green. We don't have an excessive vibration. We've got fuel flow has started. EGT is going up, so if you've got to cook hamburgers or something, you know, it's a little hot behind the engines. And then the green avail light goes on. That means that engine's up, running, and available. And when the avail light goes out, notice that the back, little gray box around the N2 will eventually go away. That lets you know that if you've missed the avail light, that you've started up your engine. And now let's go ahead and start engine number 2. Number 1, talk about mixing up your engines. Okay, here comes N2. And it looks like I may be wrong about the little gray boxes. On other Airbuses, simulated Airbuses, I've seen the gray box go away after you do a successful engine start. If you want to be a real-world pilot too, remember the altimeter 3008. You can go ahead and set up your backup altimeter down here. They're going to do that too. That would be a good thing. Engines are starting up nicely. You probably saw that the hydraulic PTU pump went on after engine 2 started. You do not hear the dogs barking, which is the PTU pump, which is back, in the middle of the airplane, and passengers, looking around saying, "Is there a dog down there?" Well, no, that's the PTU pump, but apparently you don't hear it up in the cockpit. So the designers are now making it so you don't hear the PTU pump in the cockpit anymore, which, I kind of missed that one just a little bit, but okay, I can live without that. Okay, two engines are available. Let's go ahead and we're going to turn the starter back to normal. We're done with the APU, so I'm going to go ahead and pop those off. And then we're going to look down here and wait until the engine ECAM goes away and it shows the wheels. Now, take your side stick and push it all the way forward and release it. It should go to the center location. All the way back and release it. It goes to center, ailerons, centered, right, centered. Put your feet on the rudder pedals, all the way to the right, all the way to the left. Then look down here at your McDo, and it reminds you that you're going to do a trim setting of down 0.1. And there we are. Our trim setting is down 0.1. Last thing to do, and this is even more important on a second flight, is go down and hit that rudder trim reset button. Make sure that your rudder trim reset is good to go too. Now, the real world pilots might wait just a little bit. I turn on my TCAS and I put it right on Terra. I'm also going to set ATC to auto, and I'm going to turn on my predictive wind shear and just arm the speed brakes. It's because I'm down here at this point in time, and if you're in a VATSIM event, you got to start moving. Now is the time. So, I get a few things done when my view is down there. Okay, that looks good. We're going to start our taxi. So nose light to taxi. Feet again on the rudder pedals. Look up here. Let the cabin crew know we're going to start moving the airplane. And parking brake is off. And if you look down here, like in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see maybe the airplane start to move. Depends. You might have to add just a little bit of throttle. Not a lot, just a little. And then start steering. We're going to make a right turn out of the gate area. May have to continue to add just a little bit of power. But not much. The secret to taxiing is not fast, it's slow. This is a slow-going thing. And particularly at this airport, we're going down to 28 right. And one of the things that I noticed one day, over in one of the other Airbuses on another sim, was the fact that it just seemed to me like I was always having to stomp on the brakes as we were taxiing down here. And it's sort of like, okay, it's probably just overpowered on idle or something. Well, then I was a passenger in a real-world flight. That's why I suggest doing real flight that you've taken as a passenger, because you notice things. And so one of the things that I noticed is the real world pilot was stomping on the brakes all the time too. It's because the elevation at this end of the airport is lower than the rest of the airport. And so the airplane's going to pick up speed because we're kind of going downhill. So another reason why I like to suggest, please, your first flights in an airplane, take something that you've already been a passenger on. You might have noticed a few things like that. So as I'm doing my taxi, I'm also keeping my ground speed down. You basically can taxi up to, about 20 knots of the ground speed unless you've got a 90-degree turn to make. And at that point in time, you want to be at 10 knots in that ground speed. So that's sort of like if you've driven a car, that's your speedometer on the ground. And you see as we're going downhill, speed just keeps going up and up and up. I've also noticed that ground traffic is really good about getting in your way, whereas at a real-world airport, ground traffic is not going to get in your way. If you've got access to a real-world checklist, and there are a bunch of them, xplane.org is a great place to go and find real-world checklists. You could actually look at the checklists that the pilots are using and go ahead and run through that. So a before takeoff checklist, flight controls have been checked and set. We did that. Flight instruments, your altimeter is checked and set. Briefing, you've been briefed probably till your ears are bleeding. Flap settings. So when you're doing a checklist like this, you actually look at your numbers, look at your ECAMs. So I'll stomp on the brakes to get us to hardly moving, and then look down here. We don't have flaps set, so flaps set to 1. And you can go and look and see, are the flaps really set the way they're supposed to? That's good. Flap settings are good to go. Let's also look down here. V1 VR flex temper is set. We're going to rotate at 146 knots. ATC is set. We've turned that on. And then the ECAM memo, there's some things that aren't set on the ECAM. So let's go over here and do auto brakes to max. That's out. And then you look down here and hit the takeoff config test button, and that's going to check your takeoff configuration. And if that's clear, then you basically say you are good to the line. And on these airplanes, there is a line in your takeoff checklist. And so we've got everything good until we get to the hold short line here. I'm sure that there's something to do. Taxi speed's now all the way down to about 5, 7, or less than 10. And we're going to go to the hold short spot here. And then stop. And parking brakes on. All right, now we're at the line. So takeoff runway has been confirmed. Look at the paint or look at the sign. Are you on the right runway? That's kind of like a deal. Cabin crew has been advised. You remember I went over here and hit the all call button. Cabin crew's been advised. TCAS is set to TARA, so that's good. Engine mode is going to be normal, and packs are going to be on. Our takeoff checklists are good. For clearance to take off or line up and wait, parking brakes are going off. This says we're cleared to go onto the runway. I'm an attention freak. I want to turn on my strobes. I want people to start seeing my airplane, that I'm out there and going to be serious about that flying thing. Also, if there's an airplane that's on approach that everybody's missed, Now you're seeing stuff light up just a little bit. Might have to add a little bit of power here, even though we were going downhill. So add a little bit of power as we go on out. I did not turn on my landing lights. My landing lights aren't on, but I did go and take them to the off position. On these Airbuses, the landing lights kind of come down under the wings, and then they fold up when you're done. So what I've done is I've gone and I've dropped my landing lights out of the bottom of the airplane. And taxiing these things is kind of, still takes a little bit of work. I still have not been able to bind my nose wheel steering to the twist on the Logitech stick yet, so I haven't done that. Have you noticed something, though, that I haven't done? I didn't turn on my flight directors. Flight directors are now on. We'll give that just a second, and assuming we've got clearance for takeoff, you then look up here, and the last thing you do, turn on the landing lights. That lets the people in the tower know that, hey, this airplane is serious about flying. Hands on the throttle, hands on the stick, feet on the rudder pedals. Throttle's going to go up to the little halfway mark. And stabilized. Manual flex, SRS runway set, auto thrust is blue. I'm just reading these things here off the primary flight display. Might need a little bit of rudder to the right because we got a slight crosswind today. Got a nice flex temperature. There's 100 knots. And here comes the V1 VR. Going a little faster, and there's V1, there's VR, and rotate. Yeah, we did have a little bit of crosswind there. Positive rate of climb, gear going up. Beautiful sunrise departure. I also recommend flying out on a, sunrise departures. You might have to get up a little bit early in the morning, but that's really nice. Now, flight directors, I'm basically going to fly the crosshairs here. It says lever climb. Yep, there's our altitude for lever climb, so thrust reduction. You're going to have to push the nose down a little bit when you do thrust reduction. Maybe even a little more aggressive. Okay, so another thing about Microsoft Flight Simulator, I'm just going to tell you, it's okay to do when you first get this because the scenery is so amazing. Do a flight in the Cessna and fly over your house. You've got to do the I could see my house from here flight. You really just do. Okay, we're going to tune this out until I see my first checkpoint. There's gates. Probably turning a little bit sharp, but it's okay to give the passengers kind of a little bit of a ride. And AP. Nice departure there. I got to get back over here. The Yellowstone River is looking pretty good right now. Not as icy. And there's no snow at this point in the year, so... I waited too late on my flaps. I get yelled at about that all the time. Flaps going up. We can also look down here and we'll disengage the speed brakes. Disarm them, I guess is the better word. So now we got landing lights, seat belts, and no smoking on. Speed is right around 250. We've got altitude coming up. Hello, Yellowstone River. One of the things that's missing is this little bluff right here. There's like almost a dozen broadcast towers up there. Broadcast towers are like important. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that tells Microsoft or whoever, don't put broadcast towers up. That's a security issue. But if you're learning how to fly, you really need to see those. You need to see broadcast towers. Okay, 10,000 feet. We're going to go here and we're going to turn off the landing lights. And the nose wheel light is already off, but we're going to turn that off. And then on United flights, I've noticed they ring the bell at 10,000 feet. That's the flight attendants know it's 10,000 feet. They're going to get on the PA and say, The seatbelt sign is still on, so you have to stay seated. Oh, and by the way, in the seat pocket in front of you, there is this really great deal for a credit card. That's the cue to do the credit card announcement. At least on one major domestic carrier. Past 10,000 feet, speed is coming up. 280. We're going to go about 290 for the climb. That's pretty normal on this airplane. Passing 12,000 feet. And we just got kind of mooned there. And I will tell you, for jet flying or really smaller airplane flying, the scenery is absolutely stunning in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's the first thing you notice. The jetliners are getting better and better. The Cessna is fabulous. It's great flying. But, you know, as this airplane keeps getting better and better, and it is getting better and better, it's just going to be a great, really nice thing. 14,000 feet, kind of looking down here, making sure none of the engine indicators are turning red. You might notice the temperature. It's 23 degrees in the cockpit and the forward cabin, 22 in the aft cabin. Just a little bit cooler in the back. I should have also turned on my terrain radar. The real-world pilots say that terrain radar should be, at least one pilot has to have that on. And then from here, we'll just adjust the intensity up a little bit. It's not rolling. Oh, it's because I've got it maxed out. Okay, there's not an awful lot of terrain radar to see here, I guess. The other thing we're going to do is no constraints going out, so I'm going to put it onto airports and dial it out just a little bit more. You want to have airports up like that in case you have an engine failure or some other problem. You have airports up there and you look there and says, oh, we've got a problem. Where can we land? Well, I don't see anything there. This is also great. I really missed this while the developers were working on it. The QNH flashing at you, altimeters to standard. And now you could also run the after takeoff checklist, which is basically verified. Landing gear is up. It is. Flaps are up, so you're looking right here at the indicator to make sure flaps are up. You might also look and make sure that the lever is in its correct spot too. Packs are on. Some airlines turn the packs off for takeoff. I don't think we needed to do that today, so packs are on. And the barrel references have been reset. It's been set to standard here on this airplane, on this one, but down here, we probably ought to dial that back to 2992. And I don't think that there is a button to push it to standard, so just dial it back to 2992 or 1013 millibars. Hectopascals, not millibars. And everything's looking good there, passing 21,000 feet. We are on our way. The little hockey stick that you see right there, that is top of climb. The airplane is really good at estimating top of climb. Top of descent is still a problem right now. So we'll just kind of have to eyeball our top of descent. And as you can see, we come out on gates and grins. Here's all the little airports in the area. I think that the real-world Airbus is not going to have like the 99 WY airport, because that's probably some farmer's dirt strip. So probably not good for an Airbus. But so we would probably see KSHR, Sheridan, Wyoming. So there would be a place. So probably not the farmer strips here, but you would see places where this Airbus could actually do an emergency landing of some sort. And there we are. We are pretty much out. So we are in climb mode. That looks good. We could also hit flight plan, and flight plan shows that we are 411 miles out. UTC arrival time 16:52 Zulu. So if we go over here and then slide over, it is 15:53 Zulu. So we're landing at 16:51, about an hour or so. Since, you know, the flight time is pretty close to accurate in this thing. Beautiful day to fly, nice and clear, coming up on 25,000 feet. If I look outside and I see it's clear, there's no turbulence, I'm going to go ahead and turn off seatbelts. I'm sure there is a passenger back there that went to the Empire for a big old cup of coffee, got a, venti instead of a grande, and they're sitting back in their seat going, so they got to go to the bathroom. You only make that mistake once. You only do it once, and then you learn. I speak from experience. Okay, everything else is looking good. Our airplane is climbing, and we are doing just fine. So what's going to happen next? We are going to basically go ahead and continue our climb. We're climbing to flight level 370, 37,000 feet, and we are just going to continue our normal flight down to Denver. So what I'm going to do is use the miracle of editing and not make you watch us do the continual climb. So what you're going to do in your flight is level off. And when I go ahead and get the airplane leveled off, I'm going to go and switch airports off. This is just a flight sim thing. The real world pilots would leave them on. And I'm going to dial the range ring to 160 nautical miles. Okay, and then I'm going to keep an eye down here. And when my arrival airport shows up here in the range ring, so when Denver shows up here at 160 miles out, that's when I'm going to start my preparations for descent and landing. And that's when we're going to start, where we're going to pick the video up. So enjoy the rest of your the flight. We will check in with you as we get to 160 nautical miles from Denver. Hey, welcome back. It's almost time for us to go, although you didn't really go anyplace, so saying welcome back sounds ridiculous. But let's not get into that. Let's talk about flying the airplane here. Beautiful flight into the sun. And if you were wondering, did the weather work? It's actually very, very clear outside where I live, where we did our departure. But as you see here, we've got clouds increasing just a little bit. I did get the latest weather information, and Denver is currently reporting winds 260 at 5 knots, so it's 10 miles visibility. Broken clouds 5,500, broken clouds 10,000. It is 1 below. The altimeter is 30.17, so I think we're good to go there. Let's hop back into the sim cockpit here, and you can see that our approach is starting to appear here, just like I said. So there is Denver on the 160-mile range. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put constraints back on. And there is our descent. I know that our general descent is between Granola and Hippie here. So this is where we're going to do our basic descent. So the real world pilots, they're getting the weather. They're going to also brief the descent and arrival and taxi up to the gate. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to come in. There is Granola and Hippie. We have to be above flight level 270. At Flatiron, above flight level 190, we are going to be coming in here at Eldo. So we're going to end up, I believe, here at Tichenor is going to be how we end this up here at 13,000 feet. After Tichenor, on the arrival here, there is Tichenor, 13,000 feet as we come into the first part of the arrival. By the way, you look down here, this is going to be our decision height, our MDA. So 5,526, that's a number we're going to pop into the McDo. Here we are coming down. We want to be at 7,000 feet at Jetson. And then after we get off of the runway, we're going to try and hit the Delta 5 high speed to Whiskey Bravo and taxi into the Bravo concourse where United hangs out. Here is the Bravo concourse. I usually like to go down to Bravo 23 because right about here is a little place called Itai's where I like to go and grab food if I get to do a real world flight in there, which is like never these days. But someday we're going to get to go and get in real world airplanes and go places again. So let's go ahead and even enter destination data has popped in. So let's hit the clear button, and we're going to go to phase and phase. And our MDA, remember I got that off of the chart, is 5,526 feet. 5,526. Let's pop that in there. The QNH, the current altimeter in Denver is 30.17. So 30.17, and I got that information offline. There's several places to get that. Let's see, what is the current temperature? It's -1, -0.1. Winds again in the Denver area are 260 at 5, so 260 at 0.5. Transition altitude in the United States, 18,000 feet. I practiced that's from the last one. VAP is going to be 127 knots, approach speed, landing speed at 122. We're going to go full flaps for the landing, and all of that is good. If when it is implemented, you're going to see a little line in here that's going to give us our top of descent, how many miles to that. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. I know where it is here. And I'm going to be a lazy pilot today since there's no ATC. I know that my final altitude before my final descent is 7,000 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put in 7,000 feet. And so let's just pop that in right there, 7,000 feet. Our constraints going down, they look like they're fairly uniform. So managed descent isn't great yet. It's not great. It's not terrible. But it does work. So let's go ahead and try a managed descent now. And we're just going to go ahead and hit the managed button. Little dot pops up there. And it starts our descent. Now, it used to be on this airplane, the descent would just, put you into this, death dive. But that's working out a little bit better. I don't necessarily know that managed descent and some of the descent issues right now are strictly with the airplane. I think it also has to do with the navigation data that's in the McDo, and we can start putting a little bit better stuff in there as time goes by. This is putting a top of descent indicator right here, and we're descending now at 4,300 feet per minute, so I think we've kind of hit a little bit of a death dive at the moment. So we're probably going down a little bit too fast. Let's see if it keeps us at 4,400. Oh, look at that. It's starting to pop back up again. So this is just one of those areas where you kind of have to just eyeball this. And it could be that your best bet is to do just an engage selected altitude mode and then manage your own descent with vertical speed. At least that's the way I've been doing that, especially if I've got a descent here where the constraints are all over the place. Now, it does show us going down to flight level 10,4. I don't know exactly where it got that number from, but I'm not going to worry about it. We seem to be in a fairly decent descent for this particular flight. Again, another good reason to choose a flight that you are familiar with, something that you've done in the past as a passenger, or you've done, a couple hundred times in the sim. It's just a great way to practice and get better. And if you're wondering what this little tag is here, I've got the name tags turned on for the spy flights that we do over on Twitch so that I can see which friends I'm flying with here. But that's somebody, Bielza, number 48, don't know. Anyhow, is flying, it looks like, out of the Denver area. So we're still in multiplayer, so you'll see other airplanes. When we are flying online on the spy flights, we're usually on POSCON just because we're doing group chill out flights and having a good old time. But basically, we stay on POSCON right now. It's a newer network. It works pretty good. So anyway, there's also VATSIM, and we do some VATSIM flights too. Those are some things to look up if you have not done anything with those. Passing 29,000 feet on our way down. Everything is looking good so far. Outside the airplane we go. Let's see, Titanic Bard has also shown up at the Denver area. So there's probably going to be a little bit of traffic on the ground in Denver. So that should be just fine. Denver usually starts the morning off landing to the south. Usually from airplanes coming in from the smaller airports like we do. And then depending upon the weather of the day, they might switch to departing and taking off to the north. The last time that I checked, Denver is landing from the landing to the south here and taking off to the south and also taking off to the east and west. So mostly they're bringing people in here. They're taking them off down there. At least that's the way it is. If you don't know what's going on, one thing to do is to go to something like FlightAware and look at the map and just look at the airport that you're going to and say, okay, I want to fly to Denver. What's the real world doing? And then go ahead and try that. 25,000 feet, this is usually when I'm going to reach up here and do seatbelts, unless I've turned them on because things are a little bit on the choppy side, but it's a beautiful day to fly here. So the map is also getting a little scrunched in, so we can go ahead and start bringing the map in just a little bit too. We have to be below flight level 190 and 210 knots here at Flatiron. I think we're going to be good there. Thrust idle descent, we seem to be in decent shape for that. We've already plugged everything into the McDo, so that's looking pretty good. Over on the flight plan, 109 miles from Denver. Got us landing at about 16:45 Zulu. Right now our Zulu time is 16:29, so we got about 15 minutes flying time. And then we get into the Denver area. If you're looking for an interesting challenge, one of the things to do with your flight plan as you're plugging all that in, and I'm using the United Airlines 2018 format out of SimBrief, is to take a look at the out, off, on, and in stuff that you see over here. And basically, the departure time that I put in here was 15:15 Zulu for our departure. One of the cool things that you can do is go and look over at something like FlightAware or another website that has airline schedules and find a real-world flight and try and take off and land and meet the schedule. A big part of flying is meeting the schedule. So that's kind of like a real-world challenge that you can do. Can you keep up with the real-world jet? Can you land a little bit sooner? And not use, well, there's no way to really tell, I don't think, how much fuel they're using, but did you use as much fuel? Okay, 21,000 feet. We're getting ready to change the altimeters. We've got terrain radar is on. We're coming over the front range. One of the things about this flight, coming over the front range of Denver, always get a couple of little bumps. Even sometimes in the early morning hours, you're going to grab some bumps or something like that. We've also got clouds starting to develop here in Colorado. I think they're expecting a little bit of light weather a little bit later on today. I didn't look at the exact forecast. But Denver should probably be moving along pretty good. Over here, this is Sim Toolkit Pro. This is where I like to go and do my flight planning. This is also where the data at the top of the screen comes from, the flight data that I display on the live stream and all that. Here's a progress bar for the flight. We are currently in current flight monitoring mode, but you can see there's flight schedule, logbook, fleet management. Oh, and the best part is it's free. Sim Toolkit Pro. Is just a simple Google search will get you to that. This is also where I get my METAR information. So there's the latest weather information along the bottom. And you can see I have a few tabs set up down here. One is for SkyVector. SkyVector is a fabulous flight planning tool, especially for VFR, and Navigraph is going to be our flight data. You can click the little triangle up here and enable moving map mode. I do that sometimes when I have to, but that's like taking it out of real world weather. That's almost a little bit of cheating. So I really want to look at my data here and use my data here in the cockpit before I'm going to go and do that. It's another little challenge. STD is flashing. That means it's time to change the altimeters. So you click the up button, and the altimeter in Denver is 30.17. We'll pop that in, 30.17. We're going to be like real-world pilots, and we're also going to dial in 3017 on the backup altimeter, because being a real-world pilot's a cool thing. 30.17. Other things the real-world pilots are going to do, they're going to hit the radio navigation button here, and they're going to go get their chart, and they're going to go over here and look at the ILS. Our ILS that we're planning is going to be the one for 16 right, and the ILS is 111.9. So let's just go over here and look and see. In radio navigation, is the landing frequency 111.9? Yep, that's a really good thing to check, and just make sure that you're all set to go. Now I'm going to go back to performance, and we're going to just leave it in descent mode just a bit. I have noticed on some airports, it doesn't automatically put that in there for you in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it's a good idea to just check that and see what's going on. It's a good idea to check that. Otherwise, you're on approach and it says, where's my glide slope and localizer? And it's not there. And so that kind of helps you out. All right, how are we doing here? Passing 15,000 feet, our speed is going down to 250. Why? Well, there is a speed constraint of 210 at Flatiron here, so it's probably trying to get us a little bit closer to our speed here. And I found it's pretty good at managing speed if the star data is correct in there. If it's correct, wow, that's pretty good news. And in fact, here we go. There, it's raising the nose just a little bit to get the speed down even closer. We're also starting to see some of the mountains showing up here in Colorado on the terrain radar. You're pretty good in Colorado if you're above 14,000 feet, because most of the mountains in Colorado, the tallest ones, they call them the 14ers. And in fact, there's even a club in Colorado called the 14ers Club. And those are people that have climbed all the 14,000-foot peaks in the state of Colorado. Everything else is looking good here. Passenger signs are on. All of our lights are still off. We're approaching 10,000 feet. Up there, there's the speed constraint here for 210 knots. So it's going to lower our speed again to 210 knots. This is kind of hard to see sometimes. See, as we come over here, let's see if I can zoom in and look at this. Yeah, here it is. See the two little gold hash marks here? And then there's the triangle here, and then there is the hollowed out green dot. Somewhere between here and here is when you can hit the flaps button for the first time. So as we go down to 210, when we get beyond the little hash marks here and closer to the green dot, is when I'm going to go ahead and throw out a notch of flaps here. Airbuses, I don't know if the real world people say this or not. I think that they're very slippery airplanes. And if you're trying to keep your speed under control while you're getting lower and lower and closer to the airport, the best thing to do is get some flaps out there so that you can go ahead and control your speed a little bit, especially on the descent. We just did flaps 1. There's flaps 1. And 12,800 feet, we're supposed to be below flight level 190 for here. Speed is getting down to 210. Now it's dropping me down to 180. That's a little bit too soon. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to control my own speed now. I want to be at 210. I'm not interested in being that slow at the moment. We're also getting kind of close to some of these hills here. That might be a problem too. We need to be below flight level 185. I think we're too low. Let's stop. I'm going to stop at 11,000 feet. This has happened before, and I wanted to show you what happens when you do a managed descent. You've really just got to keep an eye out. Otherwise, you will just go smack into the side of a mountain. So these numbers still are not great. Managed descent is getting better. But again, I'd really kind of watch those sorts of things. So we're going to stop at 11,000 feet. None of the 14ers that I mentioned earlier are on this particular path, so I think we're going to be okay. But we have taken control of our own speed right now. So let's go down here to the McDo. I'm going to hit approach phase and confirm. So as far as the McDo is concerned, we are on approach phase. We're still going to control our own speed, but when we're ready to go into final approach mode, what that's going to do is when we go ahead and hit managed, it's going to put us on our final approach speed, and that's a lot less buttons that you have to push when you're coming in. Temperature outside the airplane, it is 11 degrees total air temperature. If we are 10 degrees or cooler, I would be reaching up here and turning on anti-ice. If you've flown Microsoft Flight Simulator, you know that icing gets to be really, really crazy on this airplane, or on any airplane. So one of the things to do is keep a close eye on that. All right, we're going to go here, and I'm going to dial the map in one more click. And there is the front range right there. We'll look down here, and we've got some mountains that are getting a little bit close. But, yeah, look under the airplane. We're going to be fine coming in here. So I think we're great. But you definitely don't want to get too close. Now, one of the things that I will also do, that I've done, is because of multiplayer in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you could be trying to do a really good flight, working really hard to make sure that you fly the airplane the way you're supposed to fly the airplane. And the thing that happens is some Yahoo decides they're going to taxi right through you just because they don't care. Well, if you've got damage and stuff like that turned on, that is a crash for you, and that means that's something you have to deal with. So flying in multiplayer mode and all of that, you've got to kind of make the decision to turn off crash and damage and stuff like that, because you know, if someone's going to plow their airplane into you, there's very little you can do about it. So that's just, you know, we'll call that our important safety tip of the day. So turn all that stuff on. We're also close enough to 10,000 feet right now, and we're going to start our final plunge. In fact, it's 11,000 feet here at Cayley. So let's go ahead and turn on the lights. Landing lights are going to go on. We're also going to turn on the nose light over here, and sometimes it's kind of hard to grab this one. And I only put that one on taxi. The real-world pilots, I think, would pop that on. Now, there's one real-world pilot, and it's interesting. What that real-world pilot says is they use this little switch here as sort of the indicator as to what they're cleared to do. So if they are cleared for the approach, they'll put it on taxi, and if they're cleared to land, they'll put it on takeoff. I thought it was a TO, but I wasn't sure. They'll put it on takeoff. And so that's just sort of the indicator to both pilots what they're cleared to do at that particular minute. That same pilot says that they will also use the two different navigation and logo light systems. Navigation light 1 system, that means the pilot is flying the airplane. 2 is the co-pilot's flying the airplane. Only one navigation light system here is modeled on the Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that's how the real-world pilots you know, use the light switches up there just as a quick reminder, you know, who's pilot, who's co-pilot, you know, that kind of a thing. And it's really interesting. I picked that up from watching some of the real-world pilots on this. It really is great. So there's Eldo. We're clear of the front range, but we're supposed to maintain 11,000 feet here until we're past Cayley. There's 7,000 feet at Jetson. We're going to decel just a little bit more as we come across the front range. Colorado history right now, there is a town that we're going over. This is the Loveland area. That's the town called Loveland, not to be confused with the ski resort, which is Loveland, and that's, if you go over there, you can fly up I-70. Just before you get to the Eisenhower Tunnel approaches, you'll find the Loveland ski area. And by the way, that's the neat thing about this sim. It's modeled. And one of the things that I've done is I've taken the TBM out of Centennial Airport in Denver and taken it right up I-70, and it is done so incredibly well, which I think is just pretty amazing. So again, it really is kind of a cool thing to do with this simulator, is fly around a neighborhood that you know. I kind of grew up along the Front Range, did a little bit of reporting in this area too, radio and a little bit of TV in this area, and I've got to tell you, it is so cool to take an airplane and go flying around here, because sort of like, hey, I remember that big old boulder over there, and I remember this mountain from a story I did. So, you know, one of the things to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator is hop into the airplane in your neighborhood and go flying around, and when you see the real stuff out there, it just brings this simulator more and more to life. I mean, this is really where these Front Range lakes are. There's a Waving Key flying over there. Hello, Waving Key. We'll wave back to you. But that's just one of the cool things about this. All right, everything's looking good here. We are 10 miles, about 15 miles from Cayley. We're going to continue on at 11,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and dial in my 7,000 here. And I'm going to dial that back up to 11. Did you see it started me on a descent? I don't want to descend yet. That's another thing. I may have pushed a button wrong. It may be modeled correctly, but I just wanted to put that in as a reminder altitude of where I want to go. I didn't want to descend there. So one of the things is the airplane will sometimes do things that it's not supposed to. Part of the reason is there is a single autopilot subroutine within Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what we'll call it. And it's basically, I think, based off of the Boeing autopilot or something else. One of the things that the Fly-by-Wire crew is doing is rewriting all of this so that it behaves like an Airbus. I think that flying along like we are right now, and I dialed in a new altitude, the Airbus would not start descending until I tell it to, which is something that is kind of smart about Airbus. So, again, you don't, if you, it's not going to behave exactly right. But FlyByWire is getting closer and closer to making it just right for us. There is the airport. It's getting closer and closer. I'm going to go ahead and dial this in one more notch, and all of that looks good. Let's also go down here and start getting a few things ready to go. I'm going to get the speed brake lever armed. Speed brakes are armed. I'm also going to look up here, and I'm going to do auto brakes low. Auto brakes low is the decision I made on this one because, remember, we got a big old long runway. We're landing on 16 right, but we don't want to stop too quickly. I want this high speed here, the Delta 5. That's more than halfway down the runway, so why wear down the brakes unnecessarily until we get to the Delta 5, which is a high speed down to Whiskey Bravo, which so that's the reason why it is that I'm doing auto brakes low on this one. We have a decel point here. That's a good time for us to go, and I'm going to do a deceleration to 180 knots. And you're going to see there's another set of those little hash marks, and then a letter S. That's a next spot that we can go ahead and throw out another notch of flaps. So now we're going to go to flaps 2. Wait till you get beyond that, and then you can go and dial in flaps 2. There's flaps 2. That's going to just help us keep control of the speed of the airplane, especially when we're doing our final plunge to the runway. And this is also a time that we can do the approach checklist. So you've been briefed on the approach. ECAM status is looking pretty good. Everything's clean and green. Seatbelts are on. Barrel reference has been set to Denver. The MDA was set in the McDo, and the engine mode is going to be normal for landing. So we're good to go there. There's the approach checklist. Coming up on Cayley. After Cayley is when I'm going to go ahead and in 4 miles, that's when I'm going to go and put in my 7,000. Because clearly the airplane wants to descend right now. I'm not going to let it descend until I want it to. And you're supposed to be mandatory at Cayley at 11,000 feet and 210 knots. We're a little bit slower right now, but that's a little bit of a fudge factor that we get to do. Let's also look down here, the outside air temperature. Okay, it is now 4 degrees, and we're coming into clouds. So technically, I want engine anti-ice on. I don't want to ice up. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was doing a VATSIM flight out of the East Coast. It was a big VATSIM event, flying the Flight Factor 757. We entered into an area of heavy icing, and I ignored the icing rules. And in the middle of a VATSIM event, I fell out of the sky, and that was it. So I don't ever want that to happen again, so that's why I do that. About 4 miles away from Cayley. And at that point in time, I'll put in my 7,000 feet. 3 miles from Cayley. Okay, we're actually technically past Cayley going to Shrome right now. So 7,000 feet. And the airplane is starting a descent. Looks good. It's also, it has altitude constraint and starred there, so I think it's going to see our altitude constraints coming in. We're getting close to the airport. Let's turn on the ILS system. So now we've got the 4 little dots in the middle line and the 4 little dots in the middle line. We're doing a thrust idle descent and continuing to go down. We still do not have glide slope and localizer yet. We're still little ways out. Denver got some pretty long approaches. But that's how that they can stack up multiple airplanes and just bring them in one right after the other after the other. If you haven't had a chance to see, go to something like Flight Radar 24 and also, Real World ATC that you can listen to on the internet and watch the incredible dance that the controllers and pilots do, bringing in so many airplanes into a major airport. One of my favorites is to go and listen to Chicago O'Hare. That is truly amazing to listen to. So if you get a chance to do that, there are places you can go and listen to Real World ATC. Okay, we are coming up here. There is Sakic, Newland, Murren, Jetson. Doing pretty good coming in here. We're going to hold at 10,000 feet here. I'm going to keep my speed to 180. Watching real-world pilots on the sims and on their live streams, they usually wait until they're about 5 miles away from the runway before they're going to go and do landing speed, gear, and the rest of the flaps. But we are continuing our descent. I do have the airport. I do have the runway. There is runway 16 right, 16 left. The airport's in the center. Winter Band is doing something there right now. Outside the airplane when we go, you can see things are looking nice. We're below the clouds now, so we're out of the moisture. I'm going to go ahead and do anti-ice off. Let's also ring the bell one more time. Let the flight attendants know we're serious about that landing thing. And they even have this airplane, a couple of cabin announcements modeled in there, which I think is pretty good. Okay, 15 miles from the runway. How's the real world time doing? It is 16:50, so the estimate that we got from the McDo, we're already running just a little bit late, probably because I slowed down a little bit too soon. I tend to, especially with this airplane, with any airplane, I tend to slow down sooner than I usually need to. Okay, if you've got a gaming chair or something, make sure it's locked so that you don't suddenly lean back. Feet on the rudder pedals. It's about time for us to take control away from the autopilot here. We are on about a 14-mile final. I do have glide slope and localizer. Let's go ahead and hit the approach button. And localizer's got a little white box around it, so we're snagging the localizer here. Descent, altitude constraint, we're hitting it at 8,000 feet. GS is in blue. That means it is armed, just like brakes. Low is in blue, so it's ready to go. Coming over the highway that takes you out of the Denver area to Greeley. And I will tell you, this is kind of what it looks like. I've sat back as a passenger, usually in seat 10A, and that's what it looks like. It is so cool to see this. Passing 8,000 feet. We're still a little bit low, but I think we're going to intercept the localizer here at Murren in about a mile. So we're going to see altitude constraint is now starred. So it's about ready to snag it. Wait for the little white box. There's the white box. We're about ready to grab glide slope. Let's go ahead and dial the map in one last time. There's Jetson. There is Denver. We're on a 10-mile final. There's 7.5 miles. At 5 miles is when I'm going to do gear and flaps. If we were on POSCON or VATSIM, there was no ATC in the area, we'd be on CTAF, Unicom, and we'd be announcing our intentions. We'd say something like Denver traffic, a United A320 is a 10-mile final for runway 16 right, landing Denver. You might notice that I did not use my flight number. I used a United A320. As other pilots are looking around, they're saying, oh, okay, there's a United A320, as opposed to United 441. Well, there's 3 Uniteds over there. There's a 747, a 757, and an A320. Wonder which one is 441. So if you say your airline and your aircraft type, I think that that's kind of a great way to help other pilots identify you. We're between 7.5 and 5 miles on the final right now. Again, I like to wait until we're 5-mile final. And so I'm going to do several things. I'm going to go over here. That's close enough. Manage speed. Landing gear. Then I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to look. Am I below the hash marks? Yes. Flaps 3. Gear is down. Flaps went down a little bit more. Chris the pilot is over there. Winter Band is still there too. That's looking pretty good. Okay, we're also looking down here as we get a little bit closer to the little F here. That's going to be full flaps. There is going to be our target speed. So as we get a little closer to that green F, that's going to be when I'm going to hit my flap button for the last time. This is also a great time to run your landing checklist, and that is going to be cabin crew has been advised auto throttles are going to be good. Auto brakes, are they armed? Yes, good check there, thank you. And the ECAM memo is clean and green. Our landing checklist is done. We're currently 3-mile final. I think the airplane has had enough fun. Pilot gets to fly. Autopilot off. We have got a quartering tailwind here of about 5 or 6 knots. I recently picked up the Thrustmaster TCA Airbus throttle and stick. I have to tell you, I really like the Thrustmaster stick. It feels great. It really does. I have so much better control of the airplane with this. Okay, I'm a little bit low. I also really like what they did with the throttles. The one thing I wish Thrustmaster would have done was backlit the throttles. You saw how really nice the throttles looked when we backlit these. Got minimums. We'll call continue. A little off to the right, but we'll make it. Nice descent. And we float, float, float. It's an Airbus.
10, 5.
Gear down on the pavement. Push the nose wheel down on the pavement too. Reversers are green. Okay, there's the one high speed. I'm going to go reversers off. I'm going to tap my brakes, turn off the auto brakes. I think the real world would like us to probably get off at the real world would like us to get off there, but we're going to go ahead and go to the next high speed. Remember that one high speed that takes us into the terminal area? My landing rate was minus 124. It keeps getting better and better. All right, now a little bit of manual braking. And off on the high speed. A little more braking. And I can release the pressure on the stick on the nose wheel now. And it's still a high speed. Clear the active. So clear the active, clear the runway. We'll do landing lights can go off. Let's also go up here and we're going to turn off the strobes. And I'm going to start up the APU. Okay, coming up over here. Slow us down a little bit more. One of the things I really like about the scenery at this airport is that really is a big old gully up in front of us there. That's the fuel farm. And so that's going to be a little bit lower to help prevent fuel spills. I think that that's real nice modeling that they've done. APU is up and running, so we're going to slowly do the taxi. We're actually going to go up a hill here, so you might have to add a little bit of throttle up here. Just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit of throttle as we go up this hill. Not much. Okay, one of the things that I've also not done is I haven't put my flaps up. So flaps should go up. Speed brakes are already down because they were armed for landing, but fact is I think they've even disarmed themselves. Yep, they disarmed themselves. How about that? And we're coming on up to the terminal. I see gate Bravo, let's see, what is that gate again? Bravo B23, yes, to get us over to ETIES. Once again, as we taxi on up here, again, there is no right way or wrong way. The part of this video is just, here's what works for me, and maybe some of this is going to work for you too. I do like to say, please leave your comments. I'm new on YouTube, and so I'm still to the point where I read them all. I respond to almost everything, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this airplane. I am live on Twitch most days, especially as we're all on lockdown right now. Live on Twitch most days at 2000 Zulu. You are always welcome to fly along with us. I post flight plan data an hour before flight time. This is a new channel channel on YouTube. It is not monetized in any way. I don't get any support from YouTube. So if you would like to do some support, please come on over to the Twitch channel and hit the sub button. Or if you'd like to, I'm an amateur spy story author with some books over on Amazon. So would definitely like to see you on the spy flights. We do fly for fun. We're not flying to be crazy or any of the other things. We let other people do that. Okay, here we are. Let's come on around here. I'm not sure that this gate is numbered. Maybe I went down a little bit too far. Yeah, I probably did. So we're going to go ahead and grab this gate, and we'll end up at Denver. I'll see you at Itai's, where they have really good breakfast sandwiches. They're not paying me to say this, but if you order coffee and Bailey's, sometimes you get seconds for free. So as we taxi on up to the gate, thank you so much for watching. As always, I like to say at the end of my flight live streams, stay healthy, stay safe. We'll get through the pandemic and be able to fly in the real world before long. And I'll say thank you for watching. Have a really great day. Take care.